right? You started off with Once Upon a Time. This is a standard way human stories start. Not only does it fit nicely with Justin's story because it's quasi fairy tale, but because that activates the storytelling part of your brain. So Justin, how do you feel about doing your MCS for us? Just for Cobb's portion of the story.
Sure. You know, I don't think it matters how I feel about it. It's going to happen one way or the other.
True enough. That's not true. You could bow out if you feel it.
No, that is a coward's game, and I am a brave person who's going to try this out.
Good.
All right, let's give it a go. And mind you, I also had to remind myself of some things, like recently with everything that's been going on. So I was like, jumping back in with this chapter has been a bit of an eye opener for myself. So let's give it a go. All right, so once upon a time, there was a fantasy town called Rookhaven, inhabited by both elves and humans. And in this town, one particular resident, Felix Cobb, is dealing with a change of career from the previous shoemaker of the town to the new and first human mayor of Rookhaven. On his way to his first town meeting in Rookhaven, Felix goes over his plan for a town festival, which he believes will unite the town and simultaneously cement his place as mayor, as a memorable mayor in town. But while he approaches the town meeting, he fights back his own insecurities about being in a place where he doesn't believe that he belongs, because he won the mayorship sort of by default. And that is only cemented when he gets to his first town meeting and only a handful of people have showed up. Feeling swallowed by regret, he fails to even bring up he fails to bring up the festival even in his town meeting. And seeing this, the ring of elders who are older elves in the town that guide the town to in whichever way they feel is best, decide to tell Felix, if you want to continue being mayor, we're going to give you one more shot. And in order to do that, you need to go travel up a mountain and visit the previous mayor and get her approval. And so he does so. He leans on his friend Vuilleumier, who gives him a horn sled ram to ride up the mountain and back to get the approval of the previous mayor. But when he reaches his destination, he realizes that it's not going to be quite an easy task, as the previous mayor holds a lot of resentment towards the town. But after bonding with her, he realizes that it's not her approval that he needs to be mayor. He needs his own if he's going to lead this town in the correct direction. But before he can even celebrate his own victory, some mental victory with that, he finds out that the elders in his absence have called for an emergency meeting with the town to basically call for a vote to get him disposed. Deposed? Not disposed, deposed. And in a rush, he rides his horn sled ram, Helra, as fast as he can down the mountain. But they come into a bit of a disagreement as to where their location destination is going to be, and they get into an accident, which ends up having dire consequences for Felix. He hits a tree, and as far as he knows, has lost feeling in his legs. But even so, he realizes that he would rather be here than making shoes, and that this new path is the correct one to be on. He fights his way to the meeting, gets there just in time with the help of a filibuster from his friends Vuilleumier and his family, and makes his case for being his rightful place as mayor of the town. The town agrees, and the story concludes with Felix a visit from Felix to his father's grave to discuss the meaning of the term "a life well spent," and that is it. And that was long, and I'm sorry.
No need to apologize, right?
I forgot the word
Going
festival like
long.
5 times, and I forgot to bring it up at the end. But hey, we're here.
Well, going long is part of the process, right? Remember, the first step is completeness. The second step is conciseness. So we're still in that first step. We're trying to make sure it's complete. So let's test that first. Was it complete? Does anyone have a question about a plot hole? No, everyone's shaking their head. I do have one question, which is, I noticed this for the first time. You said that Cobb was the first human mayor. I don't think we've ever heard anything about human versus non-human in this story before, not as a major point. So just note that down somewhere, Justin. Do you think that's important to the story? Is it important to Cobb's story, the fact that he's human? Because that's new, at least in my listening. So you may want to think about how important that point is. All right. One really good point, right? You started off with Once Upon a Time. This is a standard way human stories start. Not only does it fit nicely with Justin's story because it's quasi fairy tale, but because that activates the storytelling part of your brain. And you'll notice how dramatic the telling was. Part of this is because of Justin's experience as a storyteller. Another part is that it helps you figure out what to emphasize. You can see where Justin's eyes sort of lit up because that was the part of the story he was excited about telling. And then the other parts, he sort of rushed through them, which is fine, right? That's the way humans tell stories well. Now you record it and you go back and you make sure those emphasize, whatever, the emphasis is in your allowed version, the MCS, match the emphasis you're giving in the written version, the word version. So I strongly urge you to record this, Justin, and to note down where you talk faster, where you pause and talk slower. Now that's an asset, right? Justin's storytelling ability is an asset because you can use that, A, to convince readers to buy your novel, and B, to help your writing. So it's worth developing. All right, now the big sticking point, the length. I won't burden you with this other than it's my obligation. 4 minutes and 7 seconds. Too long. So what do we do now?
Time's a construct, man. That's none of that matters.
Time doesn't matter.
We made that up.
Tell that to people who buy commercials. So what to do? I want you to do this. Figure out Once Upon a Time, that's the beginning. What's the peak of the story? What's the middle? And what's the end? Write out those 3 sentences and limit your MCS to that. That'll cut it down to about 30 to 40 seconds. Then you can figure out what you need to add to make the story complete. Does that make sense, Justin? So write out beginning sentence, middle sentence, end sentence. Say it again. It's going to cut it down dramatically, then figure out what to add. So we're going to approach this from the other side of the table. Going from saying everything to saying as little as possible, and then we're going to try to find sort of a happy medium. All right. Any questions about that? And it takes time, right? The MCS is a very hard exercise. Kim's been working on hers for a while. Ariel's starting a new project, which means she's more in the development stage. Justin is in between, right? It's longer, and now he has to try to get at what the story is in order to tell the MCS in the proper amount of time. All right. But it was good. And it's good primarily because the cues gave it drama, and then that gave it momentum. And the completeness is there. So you're on track. Next step, time. So Kim, it's your turn. Do you want to lead comments on Justin's chapter?
Sure. So when you said this chapter was written a bit hastily, like that made me super jealous because I was like, this is a chapter hastily written and it's this good. Like, goddamn. So it was good. It was great. And this Ram, oh my God, it is so great. For a non-speaking animal character, it's amazing how much charm it has. It's amazing, like, how much I fall in love with it. Like, it's just incredible, like, what you brought into this silly little Ram. So with Felix's accident, and if he is paralyzed, I almost felt like for a cozy fantasy, these stakes were getting really high. So, and the idea of him getting hurt, like, I think that's great stakes, but I think him potentially being paralyzed was like, to me, it felt like I just slammed into a brick wall because I'm just expecting this humor and expecting this cozy. And then he's like, I can't feel my legs. I'm like, wait a minute, what? Like, it hit me hard, but I don't think it was in like a good way. So I think just because if someone's going into cozy fantasy, they're expecting lower stakes. And I just think these ones are just a little too high for that. So something like a broken ankle or a sprained ankle, I think would maybe like settle better than just full on like potential paralysis. I also love the family's filibustering. I thought that was such a great idea. And it just is so cute how they're so supportive. But it took me out of the story a little bit because for the most part, the whole story is all through Felix's point of view. But then this one flipped to the meeting, and it's important, but I don't know if there's a different way to do it of like maybe Felix like bursting in while they're filibustering. So like he's seeing it. It took me out because I feel like I expect Felix to stay the center of the story. And when he wasn't, I just kind of lost that reader momentum. I think maybe a little bit more like festival talk. Like we don't really talk. I mean, I know you're leading up to the big festival reveal, but maybe just a little internality of Felix, like thinking about the festival or needing to say something about it because we don't really mention the festival at all, like at all throughout the chapter until we get to like that very last sentence. His speech, Felix's speech is so sweet. I loved it. I think you do a good job of both showcasing his goals and who he is as a character in his like speech that he does at the end. Again, maybe just a little bit more of how he's feeling, like that internal thought as he's like giving the speech, just because we've seen him evolve so much as a character. Like I want to just kind of continue to feel that, to just kind of add that extra punch with the speech. But other than that, like I said, fabulous chapter. So that is all I have.
Gotta turn on the mic. Let me ask today's two questions. So did the chapter align with the story, Kim? And you seem to point to two areas where it might not have.
For the most part, yes. Like I said, the festival was maybe the one thing I was noticing missing. Just because, like I said, it wasn't really mentioned a lot. But I think everything else did.
You mentioned the ram and the filibuster.
Oh, well, the filibuster, because everything's through Felix's point of view. And when that piece of text came in, it like Felix wasn't there. So I just it took me out of like where we're jumping around mind wise. So I think if we're going to do the filibuster, it needs to be through Felix's point of view.
Fair enough. All right. So we'll come back and talk about that in a second. Ariel, please.
Yes. Also just so in love with Helra. My God, what a ram. Love her. Yeah, I think there's something to be said about just like your intuition in writing, Justin, because you saying this was hasty, it was so good. And I really like the internality that you brought into it. And like, I think it's fine if it's kind of like, you know, it was long at some points, but that's okay. It's so easy to go back and just like, you know, work through that. No, it's so good. I thought it was such a great chapter, in the movement of where it started to how it ended, kind of similar to Kim. It just felt so good. And like, I really felt how Cobb changed by the end, like the confidence that he got and was built while he was on the mountain and came back, like the way he was interacting with everyone, just how we got to see him in the beginning to where he is now. Like, I just felt that change, and it was so good and very heartwarming. That definitely gave the cozy fantasy vibes. I was also a bit like jarred by, you know, the paralyzing stuff, but also I understood too, like the irony of him having made shoes and now, like, you know, his like legs and feet don't work. I thought, like, I think of like animes I watch and like that are funny animes, but they'll bring in like the serious piece of it too. And I was just thinking about that. I was like, that I see that piece to it. And yeah. And let's see. I was a little bit just on the fence about the very, very end, because I think it's brilliant. Like it's like, I was like, is this brilliant or do I want more? Was like my question. Where he ends with like, let me tell you. I'm like, obviously I want to know more about it. But if this is like the ending, I know there's an epilogue, but I kind of like, did he get the job? Is he gonna stay mayor? I think I just wanted to know that piece. Because that wasn't super solidified by the end. But yeah, I love this chapter. Your hasty chapters are fabulous. So great job. Adam, I think you're muted again.
There we go. Thank you, Ariel, and thank you, Ariel, for telling me I'm muted again. I'm just working on my notes so I can capture what everyone said in real time. All right. So this is a great read, right? And the strengths are the humor and sort of the interconnectivity of one moment to the next. Is that fair to say, you guys? You're nodding your head. When they record this, you can only see the person speaking for some reason. So I'm going to, just like a court reporter, nodding head. Okay. If you shake your head, I will not lie. I'll give you the opportunity to talk. Everyone's nodding their head in agreement and praise. There we go. Oh, now I got a chuckle, but they're muted. So the question I want you to think about in the editing you need to do is whether these particular points can fit the story better. Normally when you edit, the people ask the question, do I need this or can I cut it out? Right? Editing is about cutting. I will suggest to you that you don't need to cut so much as you need to fit them in. So let's take the ram. So Justin's story, for those of you who haven't read it, has a little sort of ram familiar partner sidekick, right? Who's obstinate, they need snacks, has adventures. The question is the ram a character in the story? And then how do you fit that character into the overall narrative? So I would suggest to you at this point, the ram is not a full character, right? Not a major character, but also not a minor character, right? The ram is getting enough screen time that it's headed toward a major character. So you have to make a choice, right? Commit to the ram, have the ram be a major character, right? Cobb, the main character's sidekick, or not. And that's up to you, right? I think the material's there, it's funny. I think it could be a great sidekick. But again, you have to decide. If the ram is a main character, then the story with the ram and how they get there takes on an added dimensionality. If the ram isn't a main character, then that part has to be reduced and cut out. Right? Either way, it's funny. But the funny is not serving the story if the ram is only a minor character. And then how do you turn the ram into a major character? Well, you make its presence thematic, right? Cobb's dealing with the ram reinforces his own confidence issues. The ram has confidence issues, right? There's any number of ways you could do that. That's the creative challenge. We get the same point Kim mentioned about the filibustering, right? This isn't Cobb's story. It's helping the story, but it's not really Cobb's part of the story. Again, the same thing applies. Are they enacting Cobb's plan? Is Cobb there in spirit, etc.? Or has to be cut or reduced, right? That whole, any one of these scenes for any author could be reduced to a single sentence. This happened off screen. Or, you know, that's part of Cobb's story. He's there watching the filibuster. He can't speak. Instead of being paralyzed, his mouth is hurt, right? Another choice. Again, same choice. Make it bigger, part of the story, or diminish it, potentially cut it out. And then we get to the stakes question. You know, this is just an opinion, and it's our opinion. Kim says too much. Ariel says, okay. I say, seems okay, right? I do like the irony of a shoemaker not being able to walk, right? You know, you don't want too much blood and guts in a cozy fantasy. I get that. So Kim's point is well taken. And then finally, you ask about internality. So this is what we've been working on in terms of craft. We have a lot of spectating in previous drafts and much less experience from the point of view character, which diminishes the chance for the audience's vicarious enjoyment. So we're trying to make it funnier and also give us insight into what Cobb is thinking in order to promote empathy, which is one of our primary goals. So I think you're doing much, much better. There's a lot of internality here. You kind of forget the internality toward the end in the penultimate scene. So what I would suggest to you is that you overdo the internality, right? Every time something happens, Cobb's mind reacts to it. So you do really well at this in the first part. It's not really internality per se because he's talking to the Helra the ram, but that's still giving us Cobb's thoughts, his point of view, I guess because the ram is not an intelligent responding person, so it's not dialogue. It's Cobb talking aloud to the ram. Great. So now take that and move that into the second part of the chapter where he's in the town meeting. Cobb reacting to all these people. What his wife says something, he's going to react to that, as opposed to just moving on to the next person who says something. And so you're sort of addressing the issue Kim raised by inserting Cobb into this scene. His reactions, internal reactions to what the other people are saying, right? Thank you, wife, or you're a jerk, right? Where the jerky guy Casket starts speaking. By doing that, you're going to up the internality quotient. And our goal here is to practice, you know, turning the needle up to 11, getting so much internality that people are like, okay, time to pull back, right? You haven't reached that point yet. So the craft aspect is to be able to control that internality needle. Not too much, not too little. But now we want to err on the side of too much so that we know we can pull it back in the future. All right, thoughts, Justin?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you, everyone. The main thing I wanted to go into this, I was not expecting to paralyze one of my main characters. I just, I am a fan of consequence, and so I was trying to feel out what exactly is going to hit home, but also not be too much. So that's something I'm going to try and figure out. I don't want to back away from it too much. I don't want the events of the last chapter to mean nothing. So I'm going to try and figure that out. Something that I tried to implement with the filibustering things was saying how I think I put in a line about him, how he had heard all about this afterwards. But Kim, I appreciate you saying that it took you out of it, because what I was trying to figure out was how to relay this happening, because I like the idea of it being, you know, funny and also how, you know, how does he get there on time, kind of thing like that. Felt more than just like, you know, the race itself. So those were literally the two things that I'm trying to figure out, is how to make that from his perspective, and also the injury. So I will take a look at that, and I appreciate it.
Good. So let me ask you this. Is Hecla the Ram a main character or not?
Funnily enough, like, I didn't go into this thinking that she was going to be, but she has more, let's say, screen time than most people in this story. So I feel like I do have to round her out a bit more than I was originally planning to. That's something I'm gonna have to go back to the drawing board just a little bit with. But I'm excited. I'm excited to hear everyone's response about this character that I was not planning on being such a good response to.
So that's how our stories develop, right? We're writing this character, they get momentum, we start writing more about them. Great. Keep the character. Now go back and think more about who the character is, because they now have a bigger role, which means maybe talking about Hecla in the first chapter, right? Giving Hecla some more dimensionality along the way. And that makes the funny in this chapter more funny. And that's what we're going for, because it adds Hecla to the story instead of Hecla being sort of a side quest. How should I call this? She's part of the story instead of being an addendum to the story. All right, great.
Cool. Thank you.
So, thank you, Justin.
Bardsy delivers the tools, guidance, and support you need to produce compelling novels. Our well-researched and thoroughly tested approach includes our minimum complete story, a 90-second exercise that keeps your writing on track while fueling creativity. Bardsy Publishability Index, a 23-dimension checklist that offers attainable goals and provides actionable feedback. And our brand new comprehensive character developer that helps you construct unforgettable characters. Come see for yourself at Bardsy.com today. Try our workshop or enter our first chapter contest. Then, when you're ready, Elite Membership delivers writing groups, personal coaching, and a curated community. With Bardsy, your work will captivate everyone, from agents to publishers, and, most importantly, your readers.